So we are going to talk about quadratic equations. Quadratic equations. A quadratic equation is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. This one we looked at. Now, but remember, those quadratic equations, one, this coefficient of x squared must not be 0. Actually, it only holds when the coefficient of x squared is not 0. The moment is 0, definitely x squared ceases away, and so it is no longer a quadratic equation. So it is of the form a x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Then we also remember we looked at two methods of solving quadratic equations. We looked at factorization method. Then we also looked at graphical method. There are other methods, but we have not looked at them. Maybe we shall look at them later. But these two we have looked at, and I wanted us to base ourselves on these two as a matter of revising and understanding better. So, under factorization method, under factorization method, you understand, or you know, that we are expressing the quadratic equation in terms of its factors, and then those factors will help us to find roots. What do I mean? When you have a quadratic equation, you can have maybe something like that: x plus 2 into x minus 3 equals 0. Now, when you have this one is equal to 0, remember this is a factorization that has come from a quadratic equation. When it is equated to 0, it means that either this is 0 or this one is also 0. And we would say that either x plus 2 equals 0, which meant that x is equal to negative 2. Or x minus 3 equals 0, which meant that x is equal to 3. Now, by doing this, we'll be able to find the values of x, which is this one and this. And these ones, we called them roots of the quadratic equation, which double as the solutions for that quadratic equation. I'm just trying to give a background of what quadratic equation is before we embark on solving it. So let me give another example. If you have n times m equals 2, and someone says, what could be the value of m or n? It is impossible to find m or n easily, because it means that m has very many possibilities and n also has very many possibilities. However, if someone says m times n equals 0, it is equal to 0, here it means that you can easily find the value of m or n, because the moment this product is equal to 0, it means that either m is 0 or n is 0. And mathematically now here you can say that either m equals 0 or n is equal to 0. And someone will understand you, because the product, if this one is 0, m is 0, even if you multiply n by 100, you will get 0. If n is 0, even if m is 10,000, you still get 0. So that is the fact that we use to be able to solve quadratic equations using factorization method. In other words, it means that for us to be able to solve a quadratic equation, the expression must be equated to 0. That is number one that we have to. So for us to be able to solve a quadratic equation, that expression, the quadratic expression, must be equated to 0. That is point number one that I want you to learn. So methods, we looked at factorization method, then also looked at graphical method, which we shall look at later. But let us first look at the one of factorization method. So we can look at some examples. if I have, let me start with a small one. If I have 2x minus 1 squared equals 0, and someone says solve, it is 2x minus 1 squared equals 0. Remember, 2x minus 1 squared equals 0. By factorization, by land expansion, this means you have 2x minus 1 times another 2x minus 1, and this is equal to 0. Why am I saying this? You know, when you have 2 squared is 2 times 2, isn't it? So likewise, if you have this one as squared, it means it is this times this very one equals 0. So now we have that now it is 2x minus 1 into 2x minus 1 equals 0. So we shall say either 2x minus 1 equals 0, or still 2x minus 1 equals 0. So when this one is equal to 0, means 2x minus 1 equals 0. This one comes this side. So we have that 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. This one comes this side. So 2x will be 1 divided by 2 by 2. X will be equal to a half. So because it is still the same thing, they get x is equal to a half. Now that is basically how we solve a quadratic equation. But I want to, this was just a simple, an illustration. I want to bring a better example.